So this video will go into factorising, and factorising is the opposite of expanding. So basically we're taking out the highest common factor, which is the largest letter number combination that is common to all of the terms that we're considering. So I'll start with some simple ones where we're just looking for a number as the highest common factor. So if we just rewind a little bit and we go back to what is a factor. So factors are things that go into a number, so can divide evenly into a number. So for example, factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4 and 8, because if we multiply 1 and 8 we get 8. If we multiply 2 and 4 we get 8. We can divide each of those numbers evenly into 8. So when we're looking to do factorising with algebra, we have to look at both of the terms. So our first example is 5x plus 10. So straight away we know that it's not going to be a letter, because for it to be a letter it has to be present in both of the terms. So we're just looking at the numbers, and we look at 5 and 10 and we go, okay, what number goes evenly into 5 and into 10? And that number would be 5. So then what we do is we put the 5 out the front of the bracket. Now we're looking at this first term to know what to put inside the brackets here. So to do that, because when we were expanding, we did multiplication. When we go backwards, we have to do division. So we're going to do 5 divided by 5, which is what I've done there, and I'm just going to get rid of those circles now. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now, when we write in algebra, we don't need to write the 1, okay? We just need to put an X. Just get rid of that line for you. So we just need to put an X, and then we put a plus sign because we're here at the plus. Then we do 10 divided by 5, which is 2. And the good thing about questions like this is you can do a check. So I always suggest to do a check. Most of the time you can just do the check in your head, but just for the purposes of this video, I will show you. If we were then to expand that, we would get 5x, because it's 5 times x, plus 5 times 2, which is 10. And we got the same answer that we started with. So we know we factorised it correctly. The important thing is if you do a check, you just cross it out afterwards, so we know that it was just a check and your actual answer is the 5 brackets x plus 2, close brackets. Example number 2 here, 2x take away 8. So again, we're looking for a number, factor. What can we divide evenly into 2 and into 8? The answer would be 2, so the highest common factor is 2. And then again, we do 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we're just left with x. And then we do a takeaway sign this time, and it's 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And again, you could do the check. Now, I'll just do the check in my head. 2 times x is 2x. Take away 2 times 4, which is 8, so I would get 2x take 8. Example number 2, a little bit different. The highest common factor, we're still looking for just a number here. So we're looking at what is the biggest number that goes into 6 and into 9. So the highest common factor here is 3. So we take the 3 out the front. But this time we're still doing division, and we're going to do 6 divided by 3, and that's 2. Now this time we have to write the number. So we have to write 2x, because it actually alters the answer if we don't. Okay? Then we still do 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So we would get 3, open brackets, 2x take 3, close brackets. And again, you could do your check if you needed to. So then we have 14x plus 16. So the highest common factor here would be 2. It's the only number that goes evenly into 14 and into 16. So we have 2, and then again we do 14 divided by 2, which is 7. And we put the x there. And then we do plus 16 divided by 2, which is 8. And again, you could do your check if you needed to. Example number 3 is looking now at where there's no numerical factor. We're looking for an algebraic factor this time. So if we have a look at the first one, we can see here there's no numbers in common, but there is a letter. You can see that X is present in both of those. So this time we're going to put X out the front. Now you've got to remember we're doing the reverse of expanding. And when we did expanding, we had to do X times something to give us X squared. And the only thing that does that is X times by itself. And then if we do X times something, it gives us 3X, we know that it must just be 3. And again, you could do your check if you needed to. X times X gives us X squared plus X times 3, which is 3X. So again, with part B, we're looking at the highest common factor being A. So we would take A out the front, and to get A squared, we have to have multiplied it by another A. And then we already have the A for this term, so it must be just 7. So now we're going to step up a level again, and we're looking for a numerical and letter factor this time. So there's going to be a combination. So the first thing we always look for is there a number factor? And for the first one, 2 and 8, the number factor would be 2. But then we also look at the variables and the letters, like the letters that are in it, and you can see there's an X present in the first term and in the second term, which means we can have 2X. So if we put 2X out the front and look at the first term where we're supposed to have 2X squared, again, the only thing that we're multiplying by is another X, because that will give us 2X squared. Then we have a look. We've already got the X here in this term. So we're doing 2X times something gave us 8X. And again, to work it out, you just do 8 divided by 2, which is going to be 4. And again, do the check if you need to. If you do the check and you don't get the same answer, then you need to go back and just make sure you haven't made a mistake. So then for part B, 3 and 15, what number goes into 3 and into 15? Well, 3 does. Then we look for the X's, and we can see there, so we can take the X out, 3X out the front. And again, we're just going to multiply by X for that first term, plus 5 to give you that one there. I am just going to do a third one for you, similar to the one above. So it's going to be 10X squared plus 15X. Now, our highest common factor for this one is going to be 5X, because 5 goes into 10 and into 15. So if we take 5X out the front this time, this is where we can't just put an X here, because if we just put an X as that first term in the bracket, when we expand it out to check it, we're only going to get 5X squared. So this time we need to do, what did we multiply 5X by to get 10X squared? We know there has to be an X because we need the X squared, and 5 times what gives us 10? 5 times 2. And then again here, 15X divided by 5X is just going to give us 3. The last example that we're going to look at for factorising is when there's a negative first term. So what I mean by that is this first term is a negative number. And when that happens, we have to take out the negative factor. So our highest common factor here, straight away, we're putting a negative sign. And the reason for that is because we don't start the inside of a bracket normally with a negative sign. So you can see 3 and 15, the highest common factor is going to be negative 3. So we put the negative 3 out the front. Now, if we do negative 3 divided by negative 3, we get positive 1, which is just going to be X, because it would be 1X, and we don't need to write the 1. But then we have to consider this again, this negative 15 situation. So we're now including that take sign with the 15. And we do negative 15 divided by negative 3. So I'm just going to write here, we do negative 15 divided by negative 3. And that actually gives us positive 5. And that's what goes in the brackets. again, always can do the check. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15, which is where that take 15 comes from. Then for part B, our highest common factor, again, we're looking straight for that negative, and then we look for 5 and 20. So it would be negative 5. We take the negative 5 out the front. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1. So we would be writing 1x, which is just x. And then again, to get this second part, we're going to do positive 20 divided by negative 5, which actually gives us negative 4. So you can see there, the sign had to change when I take the negative factor out. So here, in the first example, it was a negative, and now in our answer it's a positive. And then in our second example, it was a positive, and now it's a negative when we do our answer. So just a reminder, when you take out that negative factor, the sign in the bracket has to change. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a rundown on how to do basic factorising with common factors.